We are officially back, and we have lots of good news coming out of training camp and a little bit of bad news. All that and more on this video. What's going on? It's Elijah from Sports Talk Indy, where we cover all things Colts every single day. And we'll start with the good news, and then we'll get to the bad news. So be sure to stick around towards the end of the video, because it's some stuff that may be a little gloomy. But the first thing is the good news, and that is there was a video that came out right before training camp officially started, which was yesterday, July 24th, which didn't include like a practice. It was more of like media sessions. And we got some clips and some things that were exciting. Shane Steichen revealed that they are not going to be limiting Anthony Richardson and his run abilities, but they are going to continue to push him. And the direct quote was that they're not going to. Why would you limit Steph Curry from shooting threes? And while I respect the comparison, I definitely think that we should err on the side of caution, specifically because Anthony Richardson only played in 4 games last year and only started 4 games last year and then missed his season with a injury due to him running the football. So I do think that like the comparison, while being bold and exciting, is also a little bit like I think we need to move forward with caution. So there's good news number one. Everything looks to be good. Anthony Richardson is very much so back. And this was the expected time that we were to see him officially make his return. But we did get a little bit of blessing, and that is that he came back for OTAs. So good news number one. Good news number two, there was a video that came out of Anthony Richardson and Michael Pittman Jr., who they was like blindfolded. They were like answering each other's questions. It was great. But the reason I think it's so fun is that it continues this narrative that Michael Pittman Jr. is the leader of this Colts offense and really is carrying the culture. And it goes even further than that, because Adonai Mitchell says that even before the pre-camp, which we covered last week, that Michael Pittman hosted in California, that Adonai Mitchell just went and stayed with Michael Pittman Jr. And really wanted to learn under him and really wanted to grow, and that's awesome. That is so encouraging. That's sweet. And in stretches yesterday, everyone lined up in their positions except for Michael Pittman Jr., who lined up directly right next to Anthony Richardson, which again might not feel like a lot, but it is something. I think it is important to note and an important thing to realize that like Michael Pittman has kind of seemingly taken it upon his own. Taking it on his own shoulders to be the culture leader in this locker room. So that's good news. Number two, good news number three. All of the throws that we've seen from Anthony Richardson in this training camp so far in just the 1 day of practices we've got have been absolute dots. And it seems already that he's looking directly at Adonai Mitchell and Josh Downs. There have been a lot of plays towards those guys. The only thing that I would say that was a little bit of a technical critique, and this is not me saying that I could do better by any means, was that the ball did look to be a little high on a lot of those throws, but we saw that last season. He definitely favors to go high over than low. But also think that there's a part of me that wonders if Anthony Richardson's arm is more powerful than even he realizes. And that could be something that's going to be really really cool. But all around the videos and the pictures and everything that we've seen, the vibes are just so incredibly different at this camp as opposed to last year or the year before. I mean, it was a gloomy scene last year coming in. Jonathan Taylor wasn't there. Anthony Richardson was just then getting there, and it really wasn't like it felt a lot more disconnected than it did already this year. It feels like this year everyone's coming in and there's a lot more of a team attitude. But then we go to some of the more gloomy news. And that is that it came out yesterday that Ryan Kelly is seeking a long term extension. Rightfully so. He's been one of the best in the league at the center position. And in fact, now that Jason Kelsey's gone, I think Ryan Kelly at times has been a top 5 center in the National Football League. But here's the problem. From reports, it does not seem as though the Colts are going to be interested in extending Ryan Kelly. And it seems that as he goes into this final year of his contract, that they're not going to be pursuing any sort of long-term extensions. Chris Ballard said that we are not in talks about long-term extensions with anyone right now. So it seems like they extended the guys they want to extend, and they really want the rest of the guys to prove themselves. Now that also extends towards EJ Speed, who had a great year last year. He and Zaire Franklin really held down the linebacker room, and they added to that linebacker room this offseason. But it definitely seems as though EJ Speed is also looking to get a long term deal. But his reaction was that he needed to prove himself in order to get the deal that he wants. Now, back to Ryan Kelly. I think that while I am a huge Ryan Kelly fan and he has said he wants to continue and spend the rest of his career in Indianapolis, I also understand business is business. The Colts drafted Tanner Bortolini and Matt Gonzalez at the offensive line position. Not only that, but they also have plenty of depth at that position. And so, as you get guys that are aging out, like Ryan Kelly, if you feel like a guy who has played center, like Matt Gonzalez or like Tanner Bortolini, who can carry that after this season, then maybe it is time to say goodbye. That being said, I do think Ryan Kelly is a fundamental piece to this offensive line and really is a chemistry builder. It was clear in times last season when he wasn't in, or in times the season before when he missed significant time due to injury, that it was a big deal. It was a big loss, and especially when you're talking about protecting Anthony Richardson, when you're talking about trying to provide holes for Jonathan Taylor, who loves that inside zone run. Um, it, I want to see what Ryan Kelly has for making a decision, but I definitely would. I want to see Ryan Kelly spend the rest of his career in Indianapolis. It would be so weird to see him on any other team besides the Indianapolis Colts. But again, business is business, and salary cap is salary cap, and eventually that money's going to run out. They paid the players they felt like needed to be paid, like Grover Stewart, like Zaire Franklin, like Michael Pittman Jr. And then it seems like the rest of the guys, they're kind of leaving it up to play or to play it out and to see where they're at next year. Kind of doing similar to what they did this year, where they signed a majority of their unrestricted free agents back to the Colts, just waiting on them to test the market. But it obviously didn't work out for teams like the Giants, who had it came out on HBO Max's Hard Knocks that they told Saquon to test the market and we'll try and match it. And Saquon immediately took that, tested the market, and went to the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's a game that you play, essentially, and it's a gamble. Um, the next point to be made, which is kind of a little more of again, it's not great news, but it's not like the best. It's just kind of news. This is just the news portion, and that is that Chris Ballard said in an interview yesterday that he will sign a veteran defensive back if the young core proves that he needs to. But he wants to leave it up to the young core to prove that that is not going to be a necessity. Now, the reason I say that that's not good news and that's not bad news, it doesn't feel as though Chris Ballard has an accurate pulse on the state of this defensive back. And to be fair, no one does. This is a lot of new guys, a lot of young guys, and a lot of guys who are unproven. Nick Cross took a majority of the full or free safety snaps today at the first reps, but also so did Rodney Harrison, which is an abnormal position for him, not one that he's played significant before. So it really feels like they're kind of trying to like smorgasbord this defense, and that might work, and it might be great, or it might be a horrible gamble to play when you've got teams that are bulking up on the wide receiver front, like the Texans, like the Jaguars, like the Titans, who are all adding in that position. And it seems as though the Colts aren't willing to add and spend in that very well needed position. And we've talked about it ad nauseum throughout this offseason about how the Colts haven't really addressed this really underlying need. Not underlying, even. I would say it's the right in front of your face need that the Colts have is that they need this defensive backfield to be more experienced, to grow, and it doesn't seem as though the Colts are willing to do that. And we've talked about that. But Ballard reinforced again that he is willing to sign a guy if he feels like he needs to, but he doesn't want to need to. He wants this young core to prove that he doesn't. Um, Again, the longer you wait, the more the value that these guys are going to have. Guys like Justin Simmons, who on the NFL top 100 players was just rated like 54th or 56th. I don't remember. It was one or the other. Um, and so he was like 54th and yet still a free agent. So there's something going on there that maybe, you can put your tinfoil hat on and kind of try and figure out what's going on with that. But I do think it's important to note that Ballard did say he's willing to sign someone if the time comes. But all in all, first 2 days, first day of practice, first 2 days of training camp have been electric. And the vibe is very different. And I'm very excited to see what the Colts are going to be able to do this season.